Hi, everybody, and welcome to Cornerstone Qonversations, a series of video podcasts where we talk about issues that matter in an open, authentic, and candid manner. My name is Damaris Aguayu, and I am here with Tazim Elkington, who I will just give a minute to introduce herself.
Thanks, Dama. I'm Tazim Elkington, and I am, I'm a speaker, I'm a leadership trainer, I'm a culture trainer, I'm a change management trainer, a hypnotherapist, regression therapist, a public speaker, a writer, and a poet.
Great. Okay, so this week, we want to talk about something that what prompted me to bring up this topic was something I read on your Facebook page. And I will quote, when, not if I die, please do not paste on my Facebook wall your sentiments, as I will not read them. Whatever you have to say would be better said while I'm still here and without pretension. If you know me well enough, you have ways to contact me, just as I contact those whom I care about and love. What prompted you to put this very loaded, let me call it loaded, quote on your Facebook page?
So the reason why I put that quote, firstly, is because every day we're getting closer and closer. We're getting further away from our birth time, and we're getting closer and closer to our death time, okay? And since I turned 60 recently, I thought, wow, it's getting closer. In fact, sometimes I'm still surprised when I wake up in the morning that I'm still here, okay? Because I am. Yeah. And I think it's because I've seen so many people posting on walls or posting about parents they've lost or siblings or friends. And I thought, you know what, you probably didn't take the time to tell this person or these people what you really felt while they were alive. And so, I wake up in the mornings and, most of my statements are loaded anyway. Like today, there's one on consequences. So I wake up and a thought comes and I express it. I express it because it's something that people really need to hear. And I get a lot of feedback on these posts that I put on my wall, yeah? So that one was really because I think there's serious denial about death.
Okay, yeah.
And we've kind of touched on this, and not gotten into it. So I was very glad when you picked that up and said, let's do this, because there's serious, serious denial about death.
Yeah. Why? Why denial about death?
Because it's not something as a people that we discuss. And we don't discuss it. It's not culture-based, it's not religion-based, maybe a little bit, but it's not culture-based, it's not race-based. It's just that people all over the world don't discuss death. There's an inherent limitation. And this limitation, I'm not sure how far back it's come from or why it's come. The point is, I've actually been thinking about this quite deeply. And I think if we look at how all the marketing and advertising works, if we made death a common conversation, I don't think advertising and marketing would work so well, for example.
Why is that?
Why is that? Because if we are actually, as human beings, if we actually embrace our limited time in this body, we wouldn't be consuming and over-consuming the way we've been doing. So it was one thought that came up for me. I said, I think marketing and advertising have done the most incredible work with how they have imposed their consumer ideas on people. And so people are never satisfied. So that's one part of marketing and advertising. The other part of marketing and advertising is not just the consumer part, but the whole comparison part, that if you don't have this or this or this, you will never be enough. So that's the other part. And the third part is, let's make it look like you're going to need these things forever and ever and ever. So I think that the denial from where it started and how the layers have built up has gotten deeper and deeper. And of course, marketing and advertising and people selling consumer products have actually benefited greatly from it.
Yeah.
So the denial part is because, I mean, people don't have these conversations. And let's be honest, there are two conversations people don't have, and which are just inherently part of our fiber and our makeup. One conversation is about death and the other conversation is about sex. They're both taboo. And yet, without sex, we wouldn't procreate, or making love, we wouldn't procreate. And it's such an inherent part of our makeup, okay? Mm-hmm. And the minute we are born, the only fact that is unquestionable, undoubtable, is the fact that we will die. We just don't know when, and we don't know how. And then it goes back to these belief systems. I mean, are you religious? So part of, I think religion does play a big role, and it depends which religion. But I'm very careful about religion because I think it's very personal. However, there are religions that subscribe to the heaven and hell thing. So there's a lot of fear also. Will I go to hell? Because there's nobody who hasn't screwed up, okay? Who hasn't made mistakes, who hasn't affected other people, who hasn't screwed other people. You know, everybody's done it in their own way. So the fear that comes with hell, I think could also be a contributor.
Yeah, for sure. I think fear definitely plays a huge role.
Sorry, one more thing, attachment. We are so attached to all the things and the people. We're so attached. A part of our human duality is this whole attachment, this hook of attachment. My children, my parents, my siblings, my partner, my friends, my fun, my this, my that. And all these attachments also put us in denial. Because ultimately, when we die, we are born with nothing. And when we die, we're going to die taking nothing with us. But the fact that we can't imagine our life without these attachments. And that's why the Buddhists, I love the
Yeah, we got cut off shortly, but Taz, you were talking about attachments.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Buddhist philosophy, or the way of life, it's not really a philosophy. It's, well, it is, and it's a way of life. And the same with Hindus that believe in reincarnation, that don't be attached to attachments. Because you come empty and you won't go empty for sure. You're going to go full, and you're going to go full of all your experiences and all the garbage you've collected and all that here. But the point is, ultimately, you're not going to even take a matchstick with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the fear of death specifically, because many people, myself included, fear death. So a question to you, do you fear death?
No, no, I haven't. I have not been afraid of death per se. The only time I was, and it wasn't fear of death. The only time I was afraid to a certain level was when my children were small and I was in a bad marriage. And I thought if I did die, because I did have a health scare when my children were quite young. And I thought if I did die, what will happen to my children? So that wasn't really the fear of death, but it was what will happen to my children because they were small.
Right.
But the actual fear of dying, no, I'm not afraid. So what are you afraid of?
Actually, the same thing that you're saying, in just in a different way. I'm afraid. Well, first, I love to live. I love life. I don't want to not be here. And secondly, I feel like I have small children, and sometimes I know I have a good support system, and they still have their father, obviously. But sometimes I feel like, will they be okay without me? You know, will they be okay emotionally? Will they be? I guess those are the two things that make me fear death. And then others that probably I can't really even put a finger on.
So let's for a minute just examine this and say, okay, if we took the children out and they would be very well taken care of. Let's look at the death factor in itself, the tangible death factor, where you no longer exist in this body. Sorry, I have to laugh because I think it's just hilarious. I think about this. I actually, I even have conversations about this, that imagining that I wouldn't be speaking from this mouth, that I wouldn't be in this body, that I wouldn't be seeing through these eyes. Sorry, I know people will think I'm off my head, but I think it's so funny that one day I won't be me. I won't be this person who's talking right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we look at the death part of it, yeah? What does death actually mean? What does death mean to you?
To me?
Yes.
To me, it means I'm no longer here as I am right now. My physical presence is no longer here in this world.
And what else is there apart from your physical presence? It goes back to also belief systems. What do you believe about life, about our existence, about why you're here? It is tied in. So, for example, the Buddhists and the Indians know that we are not here. Okay, let me rephrase that. They know it's not a belief, in fact. And it's about the fact that our soul, our essence exists in this current form, in this current body today. And when this life is over, that essence, that soul particle, whatever you want to call it, leaves this body and then will be reincarnated into a next body. So this becomes a shell. So it again goes back to what your belief systems are, or what you believe about your existence. What do you believe about your existence?
I'm working on it. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
I'm working on it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of belief systems, and growing up, I grew up believing that, there's only one way, And that's how religion tends to be. You know, it's very hard and fast. You know, you have to do this. This is the only way. So that's how I grew up. But now that I'm older and a bit wiser, I'm questioning a lot of the things I was taught. So I would say it's still a work in progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was born into the Ismaili religion, which is a sect of the Muslim religion, right? And then I was, so the similar ways, and then I broke off, and then I went into becoming a Protestant when I got married. And that was, again, similar. And then I broke off from all religions and decided that religion didn't work for me. So I respect all religions. However, religion per se doesn't work for me. I prefer to work from the basis that I have faith. I have faith in life. I have faith in existence. It's a personal faith. It's not an external faith. And so, and with all the work I've done, it's like, okay, so I've really done a lot of inner work on myself. And when I was doing my training and certification in hypnotherapy and transpersonal regression therapy, and before that as well, I didn't go for therapy. However, during this learning process, we had to do the work on ourselves and with our little subgroups, and we had to work with each other, okay? So with the three of us, and there were groups of 3, and all of us had to do the sessions, do the practice, do the learning. And through that practice, I went to many. And now for me, it was simple because I really know reincarnation is real for me. And so we went to many, oh my goodness, I can't even recount how many past lives I went into, okay? And I'm not here to change anybody's belief system or religion or whatever. All I'm talking about is my personal experience. And the things I saw and the things I experienced for myself, and how many lifetimes I saw of who I was in a different body, in a different country, in a different environment, in a different gender, it was incredible, different race, different, it's really an incredible, it was an incredible experience. So for me, it's like, okay, so as far as I'm concerned, if we know that death is guaranteed, then what is important? What is necessary to understand about the process of life?
Yeah. Okay, let's go there. Now that, yeah, I'll allow you to answer that question.
So for me, it's been this process that I've gone through of getting slowly and surely non-attached, getting slowly and surely to heal my wounds from my past. Not just this past in this life, first this past in this life, and then all my pasts, all my different lifetimes. Is to really simplify my life, is to keep working on making life simple in whatever way I can, from a physical point, from a mental point, from an emotional point, from definitely the spiritual point. Because ultimately, I mean, I've done Vipassana. Vipassana is the 10 days of silence, the Buddhist tradition of 10 days of silence, where you go and they provide you with meals and a bed and basics. And for 10 days, you don't speak. So I've done about 110 days in 10 years. So I've done 11 courses. And the reason I do these courses is because my work entails a lot of speaking. And so I get saturated talking so much, because I actually don't like to talk much. And I've been like this for a while. I used to always be a big talker before, but in the last, I would say, decade or maybe even more, I only want to speak about stuff that has substance. If there's no substance, you won't see me at these coffee parties and tea parties and dinners. And I think you know this about me, yeah? Unless I'm discussing substantial stuff, I really don't want to talk. I can go a whole weekend without saying anything to anybody and I'm fine, okay? So it's about simplifying life, because every thought, every word, every action has a consequence, has a charge, an electronic charge. And so if we're not mindful of this and what we're saying or what we're doing, and this is how we start the cycles of karma as well, because it's there in everything we are. So for me, I think it's been the process of wanting to simplify all of that, and by healing the past wounds, because I had a lot of wounds, I am lightening the load. You know, when we were talking about it earlier, I said we'll go with a lot of stuff, but I'm lightening that load. Now, Vipassana says, or that Buddhist tradition, the oldest Buddhist tradition says, that when you die, your soul mind leaves the body. They don't even say soul. They don't even believe in soul. They believe in mind. They say your mind, with all your memories and your experiences, your emotions, leaves this body. So I prefer to call it soul mind. And we'll go and find another house, which is another body, another place to be born. And the state of your body, or the state of your soul mind at the time of your death will be the state that reincarnates into a new fetus. So once I understood this, for me, it was very simple. If this cycle of life is the cycle and unavoidable until you reach, you know, whatever point of enlightenment that you could break that cycle or whatever it is, I don't know, and I don't mind. But if this is the cycle, then what state of mind do I want to die in? Do I want to have all that baggage that I started experiencing since I was in my mother's belly? I don't want that baggage to go with me, so I better start healing all of that.
Okay, so this basically speaks to your personal spiritual belief system, yeah?
It's not really a belief system, because when it's a belief, it's not real. It's imposed. This is not a belief. This is something I know. This is my inner knowing. I know it. I've done enough work to know it. That's why I was very clear. I'm not imposing this on anybody, but this is not a belief system.
So what would you then advise somebody who doesn't know it in that sense? Somebody who may be listening now, and maybe they do have that fear of death, and maybe they don't ever want to talk about death. They're still in denial. What would you tell them?
I tell them to get over it, because there's no escaping it. And so the more friendly they get with the ultimate inevitability, the more they will understand that how they live now and how they behave now is so important, by not over-consuming, over-attachments, over-drinking, over-eating, over-buying, over wanting money and over-striving, that, you know, this is just the process of life. So how can you consider simplifying your life how can you really start living and focusing on what matters? Not on all this stuff that we are completely distracted by.
Yeah. In fact, I read a quote somewhere where somebody was saying that the less you deny death, the more you'll appreciate life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Because
you know it's fleeting.
Yeah. You know that it's inevitable, it's going to happen. And so you don't waste your life. You don't waste your life on things that don't matter. And you don't waste your life chasing after things that ultimately, because you know that death is inevitable. I think the more we deny death, the more we deny life as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So now, if I'm in this situation where I just told you, like, one of my fears of death, one of the reasons I fear death is because maybe I have small children, and maybe there's somebody who might be in that situation where they have small children and they're not necessarily attached to things, but they have that fear of what will happen to these children once I'm gone. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So what I did was, at that time when my children were young, and I knew that it could happen, okay? So what I did was I put mechanisms in place where I wrote a will. My first will when I was in my 30s, Bona. Huh?
Yeah? Wow.
Yeah. I wrote my will.
Yeah.
And I spoke to those people I could rely on and who were close. And I said, look, if anything happens to me, will you take care of my children? Because I didn't have family. I'd left my whole community and my whole family behind because I just couldn't hack it. And so my family have always been friends. Okay, few close friends. And some I've given up along the way, and then I've had new ones come on. But I can't say family has ever been a part of my life because that's just the life I've had. Okay, so my mother left when I was 3. My father was never around, and this is my life storyline. And so I said, okay, if this is the way it is, then we've got to make the most of that, right? So what I would suggest to people who are concerned about their children is to be sensible. Write a will, speak to the family, speak to friends, speak to whoever you want that you can trust that will look after your children. And put these mechanisms in place, because you've just got to be practical on this, right?
Yeah.
Have you got a will?
No. But I already told you, I'm one of the people in denial. That's why we're talking. Maybe I'll do it right after.
So, darling,
many people
write a will.
Many people don't have wills, actually. You know that, right?
No.
Yeah.
I thought it was a common thing.
No, it's not.
It's a good thing we're having this conversation.
Yes.
Because from the legality aspect, you don't want your stuff. It doesn't matter what stuff it is. But if you're going to die and your children are going to be young, you need for them to receive what you're leaving behind, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want it to be taken by some Tom, Dick, or Harry, no matter how little or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. So here is where we have to learn to be practical.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you a simple example, okay? You know that I'm supposed to be moving, and I hope it's going to happen soon. And I got this apartment. It was supposed to be ready 2 years ago. They have taken an extended time to build it by 2 years, okay? And while this was going on, and I had stuff going on, okay? And at one morning I woke up and the thought was, what if I die before I move into this place and it's not finished? What are the legalities around that? Okay. So I called my lawyer and I said, please just tell me, if I die before I move into this place and it's not finished, what does that mean? And he says, Taz, put it in your will. With whatever you want done, then just change your will now, because you'll have to change it anyway. So change your will and put what you want done to this place if you haven't moved in. So I did that. I did that 2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just something that people need to think about, being practical and sensible. And imagine in my 30s, I'm talking about 30 years ago, okay? 30 years ago, people never talked about these things. There would, to even find people to advise you was not easy, yeah? And then, no, you know, it's very strange that we have highly educated people in our country. We have highly sensible people in our country. We have highly sensitive people in our country, highly talented people in our country. And yet we don't talk about these basic things. Now, if people started to have these open conversations about death and say, you know, what happens? Well, get a will first. Secondly, start talking to your children about this. Not when they're so small, no. Okay, when they're able to understand, have conversations. Because this is another thing, like I talk to my grandkids ask me, so Tam, did so-and-so die? I said, yeah, he died. Oh, and we move on. We actually talk about it. I never talked about it with my children until they were late teens. And I think I traumatized them because I didn't know how to talk about it then, because I was not as sensible as I am now. But there are ways of discussing that life has a sell-by date, an expiry date. So that's what I would suggest.
That's really important. I think that was a really important point to make, because I don't know if it's just here, but I do know that many people don't have wills, and it just goes back to that thing of not facing the fact that you're not going to be here forever, you know. So let's just move on to the second part of this discussion, where I'd like now for us to focus a little bit more on how we can get more death friendly and not avoid the subject so much, and just accept it as part of life. What are some of your tips on how an ordinary person can start looking at death as something that's just a part of life?
So since life happens organically and death happens organically, the word you used is acceptance. Acceptance is a huge, important, necessary word. However, just as a word, it's not enough. Acceptance has to come from the depth of your being. And acceptance can't come unless you understand and accept the inevitable. So this is a conversation, and I think it might be easier for a lot of people if they just discuss this within their closed groups, like we're discussing now, and say, come on, man, let's just discuss this topic, this sensitive topic of death, right? What do you think? What do you think? And ultimately, you know, people will be surprised, Amma. You know why they'll be surprised?
Why?
Because when the conversations start to happen, people will realize, actually, it's not as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
And it's not something to be afraid of. And it can even bring about, these discussions can bring about a different way of seeing it.
Yeah.
Somebody can turn around and say, hey, what are you trying to avoid? Or they can put it in a way that suddenly the penny drops, and it's easy to understand and it's easy to grasp, because when you're in your group of people that you trust and you rely on, someone can say something to you that makes it easier to embrace.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is, if you start having those conversations, because we avoid the conversations. If people start having the conversations, they can be so seriously surprised and find it so much easier then to say, yeah, you know what? Actually, you're right. What am I denying?
Yeah. And how does this denial impact our lives then? The denial of death, how does it ultimately impact the way we live?
So, great question. Just going to think about this for a second to bring about an analogy that might make it clearer. So I'm just trying to think of the analogy. So let's look at it this way. If there's a wall in front of you and you deny that there's a wall, what are you going to do every time you walk?
Yeah, you can't just keep hitting that wall.
You might even break your nose, man.
Yeah,
right?
Eventually you will, for sure.
I think that's a pretty good analogy. You're trying to deny something that's right there and will happen inevitably. It's like trying to deny that there's a wall in front of you. And there is no way to avoid this wall because there's no back door, there is no sideways, there is no trying to fly over it. This wall is a wall and it will eventually stop you. So then, Sinjo, instead of trying to break your nose on the wall, you decide, I'm going to walk within the space that I have, and I'll touch the wall, and I'll kiss the wall, and I'll accept the wall, and I'll hug the wall, and I'll say, you know what? Yes, this is the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, please don't tell me you've gone again.
No.
Can I hear you?
I hear you. Carry on. Yeah, you did go for
Okay, okay. I just saw you freeze for a second.
two. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So accept that the wall is there and it's part of your space, and rather than, fight it, just accept it. Yeah.
Paint on it, paint flowers.
But is there something like you can practically do, some steps that you can practically take to get you to that acceptance level? Like, what do you do to get to acceptance? Because I like what you said, that acceptance is just, it comes from you. You can't force it. So I guess my question then would be a bit of a moot point, because, how do you get to acceptance?
How do you get to acceptance about anything? Let's take an example of people that get married. Yeah, they didn't get married to get divorced, Sinjo.
Right.
People get married to stay married. But ultimately, nearly 70% of those marriages end up in divorce.
Right.
I've been through it, okay? And so how do you accept that your marriage didn't work? I don't use this failure and success and those kind of words, okay? So for me, it's like, okay, so my marriage didn't work. And my marriage, it doesn't matter ultimately whose fault, because there will always be more fault on one side than the other, or maybe equal faults or whatever. I don't know. The point is it didn't work, okay? So how do you get to a point of acceptance? Are you going to stay in the marriage that's not working? Or are you going to really look at that situation and accept that it's not working so that you can go to the next phase of your life? Otherwise, you'll never leave that bad marriage, will you?
No.
So acceptance is not the click of a finger. It's an internal process. And that internal process is aided when you have conversations, is aided when you look in the mirror. Every time you look in the mirror and say, hey, nice to see you again. Nice that you're still here. And really acknowledge yourself for being alive. I do that in the mirror, you know. I mean, talk to yourself. You know, mirror work is amazing work. People don't realize the power of mirror work. And mirror work I've had a client that stopped stuttering because I got him to do this mirror work. Okay, he'd been stuttering since he was a kid. And at, I don't know, nearly 29 or 30, he stopped stuttering with this mirror work. And mirror work is very helpful because when you're in front of the mirror, or you make it a point that every day you're going to do this. You're going to look in the mirror and you're going to acknowledge yourself and you're going to appreciate that you're alive.
Yeah.
And you could look at the mirror and say, I'm here today. Yes. So I'm here. I'm going to live life fully today.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's a great way of acknowledging oneself. And that can be very helpful because what happens is we never look into our own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
We rarely look into anyone else's eyes because we've become these screen people. Yeah. So actually even couples don't even look at each other. We don't look at children. Remember we talked about this, eye contact.
Mm.
So eye contact with yourself, because the eyes are the mirror of the soul or the mirror of the heart or whatever you want to call it, right? So connecting yourself at that deeper level with your eyes, with yourself, can also bring very many different ways of understanding things.
Yeah, that's very true. I've heard it, and it's just great to hear you reinforce it. And I think it really does work. Yeah. Okay, so do you have any final words on this subject that you'd like to share with our viewers?
So what I'd like to say is life is not going to end because you decide or because you don't decide. Life is going to end because it will end. There is a start and there's a finish. And so the more you can appreciate that we're here for a time, and within that time, what is going to be really important? What is it? You know, I don't do legacy and I don't do all of this stuff that so many books sell us on, right? So for me, it's not about leaving a legacy. I don't mind if nobody remembers me when I'm gone. I actually don't mind at all because I won't be here anyway, right? So there's no legacy I'm leaving, and I don't want to be remembered after I'm dead. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. In fact, really, I'd be so happy if nobody suffered when I die. Okay, I'd be really happy, but that might be pushing it a little bit. And I've told most of the people I love, please don't suffer too much. It'll be such a waste of your energy. Just get on with it because it was time and I'm gone, right? So for me, it's more important, not about death being the end of it, rather understanding that every time you die, there's a new beginning. And so this is an ongoing process. We're born, we die, we're born, we die, we're born, we die. Okay? And so just really start being mindful of what is really important, what really matters. Take that time to sit, to acknowledge yourself. This whole busy thing is such a waste of time. This whole overextending entertainment is a waste of time. These over addictions are a waste of time. Really spend time where it's important and it matters. And with people you really genuinely care. I'm telling you, the number of people I have coming to see me because they have all these people in their lives that they don't even like, that they spend time with. And I said, what is wrong with you people? Why are you hanging out with people you don't even like? Why are you talking about things that don't even interest you? Why are you doing things that you don't enjoy? So start being mindful. Or heartful. I think I prefer heartful than mindful, because mind can be a real bugger and can mislead you. So let's be a little bit more heartful. Actually, there's a new word I've created right now. And more heartfelt. I think I'd wrap it up with that.
Wow. And just to add to that, I'd like to read something that I wrote. I read a little bit earlier on. Huh? It goes, our mortality and finitude reminds us of the urgency of living here and now, with full engagement in life and with dedication to those around us. When death comes for us, let it find us among the living. And that about right?
Fantastic.
Yeah. So this has been, it's been a pretty heavy topic. I even feel the heaviness in my body, but I think it's very important to discuss because it is part of life. And I'm just really glad that I had you to talk us through this conversation. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dama.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can be funny even when it comes to death.
I know. Yeah, you make it much more palatable, let me say. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, thank you once again. And we will speak soon.
We will speak soon. And